Music.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome back here to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the 2024 Radical Americas Championship. My name is Ron Mons. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall, however, old buddy Josh Wilkie. Now today we're here for round number 4 of the season, coming to you tonight here on Apex Racing TV from the wonderful circuit of Interlagos. It is a fantastic circuit, one of my personal favorites on the F1 calendar. It is a fantastic visit whenever Formula 1 comes here in the fall. I have some fond memories about watching this race, particularly the 2016 Brazilian Grand Prix. I think I was about, trying to do the math in my head, I was only 11 back then, and seeing a, at the time, very young Max Verstappen cut his way through the field was a very fond memory that I'll hold for quite some time. But before we get into talking about Formula 1, I think we should talk about the Radical SR10s and the Radical Americas Championship. This season started all the way back in February. We're now here for round number 4 at the end of April, and we're at a fantastic track to do it as well. Now, Charles, you do have the distinction of being the first person besides myself and our producer Josh that has been here for more than one of these Radical Americas broadcasts. So first off, welcome here. Glad you could be a part of this broadcast here. And the one that you were a part of was actually round 2 back in mid-March, that being at Sebring. And now this track is quite a lot different than Sebring that we visited not very long ago. In the not too distant past, Sebring was quite different here than Interlagos. I'd just like to ask you this here real quick, just going over the basics here before we get a bit more in depth while we're still in this qualifying session. Would you just like to outline some of the differences between Sebring and Interlagos?
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious is the elevation changes, right? So obviously Interlagos is between the lakes, and so you got 2 lakes out there, pretty significant elevation coming back up to the start-finish line. Then you try to drop back down into that valley again as you're going through the lap. Sebring essentially flat as it was a airbase, so very little elevation change on there anywhere on the track. I think this is still a technical track, but I think it's a little bit faster than Sebring for the lap is overall is concerned. Still a lot of technical sections here. The curbs are going to be kind of touchy for these cars, just because of the way they're trying to cut as many tenths of a second off as they can by cutting as much of the track surface as possible. These cars aren't necessarily known for just riding curbs, so that'll be the big challenge for the drivers. But yeah, it's going to be a fun race. This is a very challenging circuit with any car. So I've driven my fair share of cars around here, GTs and TCRs, and as we see coming out of that corner there, the 15 car auto is going just a little drifting, and so that's what you're going to see probably for a lot of the race.
And you mentioned a good point there, Charles. This track is tight and twisty, 15 corners in all, pretty much none of them being similar to any others on the track. A lot of difficulties here driving around this track, but funnily enough, this track is more of, it's the simplified layout of Interlagos. I don't know if anyone in the YouTube chat or if you, Charles, have ever looked at the track map of how Interlagos used to be designed back in the 60s. It was very much a sad tapeworm back then. It was a very very tricky course to try and get right, probably about over 20 corners, which considering it was the 70s, wasn't too unheard of because you had tracks like Pescara back in the day that were like 15 miles long in the world of Formula One. But Interlagos at one point was a very tricky course. It's still a tricky course, though, don't get me wrong. We're going to see plenty of drivers try and navigate their way around this track. We're currently here in this qualifying session, about a minute and a half left to go here. Now, I should note one thing. We had a small little technical issue before going live here, so we apologize for that. We're going to hit the ground running and give you the action that we have from this series. And we're going to give you the action here from this qualifying session, which is looking pretty good right now. You can see Vieira at the front at a 128.762, so only that's 200ths of a second separating himself and Watts there in P1 and P2 as things stand at the moment. I think we'll quickly gun through the points right now as we're seeing some drivers spin around the track. Really tough here in these radicals to try and put the power down with very cold tires. So in the pro standings, it's Ryan Odo leading Franco Sanchez by 1 point there. Sanchez, a name that we recognize here from the Friday official broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, currently 1 point separating those two, and 1 point as well separating Lucas Vieira and John Benelid there in P number 3 and 4, with Mark Harris rounding out your top 5 in the pro category. Then we'll take a quick look over at the AM standings. That's been up and down as well. Joel Jacklin currently leading that as things stand at the moment, 5 points separating himself and Manuel Solorzano there in P number 2, Andy Vogel in 3rd, Hunter Reeve in 4th, and Charles Krasik is going to round out the top 5 in the AM standings with not a whole lot of margin separating any of these drivers. Again, we only have 3 rounds in the books here, 12 in total, so we're not going to see very big championship margins all throughout this season. So I think we're going to get used to some very close gaps up towards the front of both the pro and the AM standings. The checkered flag has come out here in this qualifying session, and it will be Lucas Vieira grabbing the pole here from this race. We have a 15-minute feature race and then a 45-minute, well, actually it's a 15-minute sprint race and a 45-minute feature race. Getting my race terminology confused there and twisted a teeny tiny bit. But we're going to get the starting grid for this race. Standing starts here in this series, which is going to be a real pain in that butt on the hilly start-finish straightaway. Lucas Vieira is going to be starting from the pole. Owen Watts there in P number 2. Eric Harmon in 3rd. Ryan Odo in 4th with Franco Sanchez in P at number 5. That's Diego Zuccarelli in P6. Adrian Fernandez there in P number 7. John Benelid in 8th, and then P number 9, the top of the AM drivers, is going to be Charles Krasik with Tyler Vickery there in P number 10. Cedric Oyahan there in P number 11. That's Brendan Wright in 12th, and then looking through the final few starters here, we've got Joel Jacklin, Luis Pires, Max Siegel, and Brian Johnson completing your 16-car field, which was one of the shorter ones we've seen so far this season. But just because we have a short field doesn't mean we are going to be short on action, and I think we're going to get that in just a few moments time. Just waiting for some more cars to line up there on this starting grid, and that starting grid is uphill. We saw it in the Friday official broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, how Kane Halliburton, who's one of the standout stars in the Radicals, was called out by the tricky starting conditions here for these SR10s. Will that bite here? We'll just have to wait and see. The lights are at. The drivers are on their way into turn number 1. It's a pretty clean start there. Pretty even keel start. It's a great start from your pole sitter. He's going to be leading them into turn number 1. Heading through the Senna S on lap 1 is going to be Lucas Vieira leading them, and then it's going to be your P2 starter there right behind of Owen Watts with Eric Harmon in P number 3 and the number 617 car. We've got some side-by-side action farther in the back as they go through Curva del Sol, going on to the Heto Apasta back straightaway, one of the longest straightaways here on this track, and we'll see some drivers using the slipstream that we have here in these Radical SR10s, trying to use that to their advantage heading into turn number 4. But so far, all these drivers navigating lap 1 clean so far. I mean, we still have a long ways to go heading through 6 and 7 right now with these cold Radical SR10 tires. There still could be a lot to happen between now and the start of lap 2, but very clean, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good start by everybody. Did see a couple of cars a little sluggish off the line, but overall, everybody got a good jump. Didn't really box anybody up. Or bunch anybody up, I should say. And yeah, so now it's just a matter of keeping the car safe till you get some heat in the tires. You can start making some moves.
One thing with these Radical SR10s that I feel like I've said a million times in my year covering the official broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, and I'll bring it over to these broadcasts here as well. Cold tires are a real pain in the butt here in these Radical SR10s. No rolling starts even in the feature race we have coming up later on this evening. So these drivers having to negotiate with standing starts, having to negotiate with cold tires, and something we see in this series as well, considering there's not a whole lot of time for these drivers to set a qualifying lap. We usually see drivers go faster in the race rather than the qualifying session, which is usually a bit ass backwards compared to what most racing series usually have. But here with these Radicals, it is so tricky trying to get the car into a right operating window, as I catch my breath there at the beginning stage of lap number 2 here. It's so tricky to get these Radical SR10s into a good operating window, whether it be the aero balance, whether it be the weight balance, or whether it just be getting your brakes and tires up to temperature. It's really tricky, and it takes a whole lot of skill to light up your car as quickly as you can so you can just push it to the absolute limit, run that razor thin edge that these Radical SR10s have week in and week out, track in and track out. It doesn't matter what series these cars are in, what track they're at either. It is always a real challenge for these drivers, but also really rewarding if you get it right. And we're seeing these two drivers get rewarded with, they're getting rewarded with running P1 and P2 as things stand at the moment, but they're also getting rewarded with a nice gap between themselves and Odo and Harmon right behind. So we're riding on board with Owen Watts, going down the start-finish straightaway, about to go through the meandering kink of turn number 15 to wrap up this lap. You can see the slipstream is really powerful here in these Radical SR10s. He's going to be closing, and he's going to be on the outside heading into the Senna S here on lap number 3. You can see Vieira still on the inside. Watts sets the fastest lap of the race at a 1:28.992. But already we're seeing the slipstream play a massive role. We may see it coming down the back straightaway. The Reto Pasta, I feel like I'll be getting lynched by some Brazilians with my terrible Portuguese pronunciations here on this stream, but nevertheless, we're seeing some hard racing here. Watts trying to find any trick in the book to get past Vieira to take the lead.
Yeah, he's definitely looking around in that draft, just helping him. Oh no, there's a wreck. Oh, they just got together like a little meta-net code contact there, coming down that straight once they come out of that corner, and it just looked like it just ran him out of room. Couldn't really tell. Yeah, just he was that Watts was off the track essentially, and just. You can see the Vieira with the front end gone. Yeah. So it looks like that's race over, and he'll be prepping for the feature.
That, I think we're going to have to take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened there. Right as I was looking away from my computer monitor, you just see the front two in this race. The ones that were commanding it, right as I was saying that they were commanding this race, they come to blows, exiting turn number 4 and 5 of the Interlagos here before they go into turn number 6. A small flat-out blast. We've seen plenty of drivers collide here in real life, and it happens again here in the sim. Yeah. We're gonna have to take a look at another angle there. That was borderline. You can see Lucas Vieira's front end just kind of giving up there as he hits that very hard bump there on the inside of turn 6 and 7. Here's another angle here, trying to look to see, well, more past the blame, so to speak, trying to figure out who may be responsible for this. I think it's a little bit netcode there as well. I think there's a decent amount of space separating those two when they actually made that alleged contact there. But either way, Watts and Vieira with some very, very bad stuff happening at the start of that race. Taking a look at another angle here, riding on board with Watts now. He was the car that tried to go for the move around the outside, clipped the dirty section of that track. Oh, that's, Watts, I think, went for it was an overly opportunistic move, it must be said there from Watts, to try and go for a move like that so early on into this race. Made a little bit of contact. Lap 4 of a 15-minute race, lap 3, I should say, of a 15-minute race, you could see why he's trying to be a little bit more aggressive, but with so much racing in front of you, I think that may have been a little bit unnecessary. What do you think, Charles?
I think you're absolutely right. It just seemed like that was the line that, he probably should have, if he was going to make that move. There was a lot more room on the left side. That probably would have been a better option. Vieira just out front, and he just takes the racing line, takes it all the way out to the edge, and Watts just takes it further out. And yeah, netcode contact there. Can't really tell if that looked like they probably would have got together anyway. Now you don't know if they would have spun or not, but that was definitely what we would say is virtual contact, not actual contact. And but yeah, it's probably a little early to be trying to make a move like that, to be honest.
Another thing as well that may have contributed to that accident having the gravity that it did is I mentioned earlier on, and I'll bring it up again here about 6.5, actually coming up to 7 minutes into this 15-minute race here. The weight balance in these Radical SR10s is it's a pain in the butt as well. There's a lot of things that you could describe as being a pain in the butt here with these Radical SR10s. The weight balance is one of them, whether it be driving around a track like Bathurst where it's probably put on full display the most, or whether it be here at Interlagos, having a bit of a shift in the weight balance is going to be real tricky for these cars. And I think that may have been the reason why those two came to blows, because that runoff area, when they made contact, the runoff area after turn number 6, there's a little bit of a bank, there's a little bit of an angle there. So I think Watts may have hit that a teeny tiny bit, and just the shift in weight balance and aero balance as well. That front splitter is so important here in these Radical SR10s. I think if that runoff area was a bit more flat, a bit more smooth, I don't think that contact would have been as severe as it was. But with all that being said, what it's allowed is Ryan Odo and Eric Harmon to grab P1 and P2 in this race. Eric Harmon currently has the fastest lap of the race at a 128.955, so that's a pretty good lap there from the American as things stand at the moment. Not too far off there is Ryan Odo, so those two fairly evenly matched pace-wise as things stand at the moment. But you gotta look at Franco Sanchez there in P number 3. The driver from Peru is always a force to be reckoned with, whether it be in the official broadcast on Fridays or whether it be here with the Radical Americas Championship. He swept, I think it was Sebring, Charles, the broadcast that you were a part of. He just, he cleaned everyone's clocks. He won both the feature and the sprint race that evening. So I think right now Sanchez is in a pretty good position if we have deja vu and have the two crash into each other yet again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good spot to be as we're watching Krasik there, just locking the fronts up just a little bit as he's going into these corners. It is one of the things about this track is basically there's not really a flat corner. It's basically everything's cambered, everything on some kind of elevation. So it just makes the braking that much trickier when you're trying to do this. And I think these cars don't have ABS, so you add that factor to it, and just makes it that much more challenging. And I will say this: I did see the prior to the lap that Harmon set the fastest lap. I did see that Watts has also set a fast lap since the incident. So he's not waiting around. He is going to try and get back up there and battle a little bit to the front.
He actually just set his personal best lap of the race last time by. That was a 129.0 that he set last time by. So I think Watts, even though he is down, he is certainly not out of it. And even though a heat race may seem a little bit inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, this is the race that sets the starting grid for the feature that we have coming up later on this evening. There's no inverts, there's no reverses, there's no anything like that. There's no separate qualifying session either. Where these drivers finish this race is going to be where they start the feature, where the big bucks pay at. That's when the pay window opens, and that's where we're going to see a lot of these drivers try and break their elbows out. We haven't even mentioned this when it comes to that feature race we have coming up later on this evening. Pit stops to contend with as well. There's already enough curveballs thrown at these drivers in the official races or this sprint race that we have here, 15 minutes in length, and there's just so much to keep in mind. But then you throw a pit stop into the works. It's kind of like the Weekend Warriors series that me and Charles and Josh have done earlier on this afternoon, where we do have a pit stop contend with in that 40-minute race. It throws another wrench in the works of those, either whether it be the Formula Ford or the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors races. The pit stop is always a real contentious topic, and here with the Radicals, it is no different. Thankfully, with this race, no pit stops to worry about. It is just going to be a straight-up dogfight between now and the end of it. I'm not really feeling confident about Sanchez's pace. He's at a 129.8 last time by. That is not an ideal lap time at all for the Peruvian driver. So I think this may be a little bit of a loaded question for you, Charles, but I'll ask it anyway because we're here to try and put on a entertaining show, and I think this is an entertaining question to ask. Who of the top four at this stage do you feel most confident in actually taking a checkered flag?
Well, I mean, it seems to be, I'm not even sure I could pick between Uh, those, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of work to do from Sanchez and Watts to get back up to that front two, but the front two are basically running, they're 10th, swapping back and forth, the 10th faster, uh, you know, in first and second. So, I mean, it's going to be, can you get that if you're in first, can you be a good defensive driver and hold the guy in second off? If you're in second, can you get a good run out of 14 and get that draft up and try and make that last lap pass coming up to the start finish line? So it's just going to be, it's how good can both the drivers be on that last lap.
I just noticed that Lucas Vieira, despite being pretty much entirely out of contention, running all the way down in 14th, he still now has the fastest lap of the race at a 1:28.869. That is blisteringly quick there from the Brazilian. I think he is going to be a force to be reckoned with in that feature race that we have coming up later on this evening. This is this is a hornet's nest of Radical SR10s here, nearly going 4 wide going down the start-finish straightaway. That's Tyler Vickery here, who's our camera car of this fight, seeing 3 wide action here heading into the Senna S. Is very close stuff between all of these drivers. Very lucky to get around turn number 1 without having some sort of major schmozzle happen there. It was Adrian Fernandez in the middle of that as well, along with Joel Jacqueline, Ohayon, and Vickery. Those drivers were in an absolute, that was a dogfight. That was a hornet's nest as they went down the start finish straightaway. I think they were very lucky that they went nearly 4 wide going down that start finish straightaway, and we're not running at a track like Sebring where that start finish straightaway is not very wide. Actually, it is a little bit wide start finish straightaway, but Interlagos has a very wide start finish line as well, and that may be the only reason why they got away with going 4 wide going down the start finish line.
Yeah, the problem is it's not a 4 wide corner coming into turn 1. So yeah, you can run down that straightaway, but I think Vickery was a very, very cool customer there, very smart, and just kind of backed out of that. Said, if I go in here and we go 4 wide or attempt to go 4 wide to win, I don't think we're all coming out of that situation, and so I'm just gonna play discretion being the better part of valor, and just kind of back out. We'll reset and we'll try and get another run somewhere else.
And we're actually taking a look now of a fight going on between Franco Sanchez and Diego Zuccarelli, the 88 and the 26, trading blows as they went through the opening stages of that lap a few moments ago. Now we're switching our attention back to this absolute dogfight forming here right towards the tail end of the top 10. It's currently Fernandez leading them. Ooh, we can see a nice battle between Vickery and Ohayon right now, as Joel Jacqueline has actually dropped back like a rock to 1:38.7 last time by. So that is a very disastrous lap for him. We may have to take a look at a replay to figure out what in the world happened there, but right now Vickery and Ohayon going side by side heading into turn number 4, not close enough to get the job done there from the Canadian, who's currently running in P number 10. This is a replay here of what happened to Joel Jacqueline. This is heading into the final real corner here of this track. Jung Sao, turn number 12, and goes sideways there, spins around, and very careful on the rejoin. It must be noted here with the other Radical Americas Championship, along with a Radical European Championship that's streamed on the exact same day here on Apex Racing TV, that there are some stricter penalties. Lap 1 penalties are a lot more strong. I think they're double the strength of other penalties throughout this race. And the checkered flag is out. My apologies. I was too busy talking about penalties to notice the fact that Ryan Odo has won here. He's won the feature at Interlagos. Eric Hartman finishes in P number 2. Eric Harmon, I should say. And that's actually going to be Watts finishing in P number 3. Got ahead of Franco Sanchez, who dropped back a teeny tiny bit, was locked steady in a nice fight between himself and Diego Zuccarelli throughout a vast majority of that. Ben Lid's going to end up in P number 6. Krasik, nice shout out to him. Charles Krasik ends up the top of the AM drivers. Very impressive run from him, and a quiet run as well. I think he was just minding his own business throughout that race, and kept his head down and kept his foot on the accelerator, and it helped him out quite a lot there in that race. And it wasn't the most exciting one in the world, but I think with pit stops to contend with in the feature we have coming up, along with Lucas Vieira, who's going to be a fantastic storyline that we have to follow in this upcoming race, I think the action is far from complete tonight. What do you think, Charles?
I think you're absolutely right. And you're right. You were talking about it earlier with 45-minute races, throw a pit stop in there. That changes that changes the dynamic a bit because they have to contend with that. And the exit's a little tricky here. It's not really dangerous for the cars on the track, but it's a little tricky because it's kind of tight. And the biggest thing is you don't want that pit road entry speeding penalty. So you have to be very careful on entry to make sure that you get the car woed up before you hit the cones.
That is a very good point to bring up. We saw the AM fight at Watkins Glen earlier on this month, back on April the 7th. We saw that AM fight kind of get derailed because of a pit road speeding penalty. So hopefully we don't see that play a role here in this race. I think we're going to take a look at the finishing order from this feature race here. Well, not the feature race, a sprint race here at Interlagos. A more methodical one, it must be said. I can't say it was not drama-packed, though. We saw the front two crash into each other in the early stages of this race, and with that schmozzle between those two, it allowed Ryan Odo to skate away to take the checkered flag there 0.2 of a second ahead of Eric Harmon in P2. Owen Watts ends up in third. That's Franco Sanchez in fourth. Diego Zuccarelli in fifth, John Benelid in P number 6, Charles Krasik, the top of the AM drivers. In P number 7, Adrian Fernandez in 8th, Tyler Vickery in 9th, and Cedric Oyan rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, Joel Jacklin in 11th, Max Siegel in 12th, Lucas Vieira in 13th, Brendan Wright 14th, Louis Pires in 15th, and Brian Johnson in 16th.
Now we have a quick little break here in between these two races, a 5-minute warm-up, and it'll give us an opportunity to have a quick little chat with one of the drivers, that being Tyler Vickery, who's involved in a fantastic fight. Drag him into the commentary booth here. Tyler, you were involved in a fantastic fight in that sprint race that we just saw. Talk us through that sprint.
It was eventful for me. I've already had an incident with Adrian Fernandez earlier in the race. He made a move, made a mistake, and spun me around on the, I believe, 5th corner. So being able to fight my way back, and then I feel bad for Joel Jacklin having a spin, but yeah, I love these radicals. I'm so used to the SR8s and jumped into this after watching the broadcast and stuff from last week. I'm like, man, I need to get back into the radicals, so got to get more comfortable with them, but I'm kind of looking forward to that 45-minute race, since I like the strategies and stuff, but cold tires on these things, oh my goodness. I knew that cold tires were going to be a big factor. I didn't realize how big of a factor it was, but I feel like me going easy at the start until I got wiped out, it kind of set me where I was like, okay, I know what I need to do now. And so I'm looking forward to the feature, hoping that I can just play it safe and try to keep up with Charles, because I think Charles being able to stay in the draft while Adrian and I had our own little incident, I think helped him a lot. But I'm loving these cars. I'm looking forward to this feature to see how we can do and how much we can hang on to it.
Well, I think I may be a little bit biased, considering I did the official broadcast here on Apex Racing TV for about a year, but these Radical SR10s are always a blast to watch on these broadcasts, and I can imagine they're an absolute blast to drive on track as well. There's a very good reason I'm behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel. I'm not the best driver in the world. You guys are, and you put on some pretty good shows week in and week out here with this series, and also with the officials as well. So, Tyler, good luck in this future race that we have coming up. We'll give you a little bit more time to do some warm-up before it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you again. I just hope I can knock down the pit stop correctly. Probably might try to save some fuel for a bit. It's going to be trying to just figure out strategy-wise. That's going to be the big question mark for me.
That is going to be a huge talking point for us as well here on this broadcast, as I'm sure it's going to be wandering in your mind throughout a vast majority of that race. Tyler, good luck, my friend.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
That was Tyler Vickery, who was involved in a nice fight all throughout that, and it was nice to hear him have a nice little chat before this feature race. Now, he mentioned and hammered this nail quite nicely, it must be said. Strategy is going to be huge in this race, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's going to be one of those that, do I pit early and get clean air? Do I stay in the draft and save fuel to shorten my pit stop? We see it, week in and week out when you have those longer races that eventually somebody's going to make the right call. And more often than not, somebody makes the wrong one, and you can just kind of go back and just look, say, yeah, if they would have done, something else at the pit stop, especially if they get a penalty, it's pretty easy to just kind of track it back and say, yep, that was what the issue was. So we'll see how these guys play it out, but wouldn't surprise me that you see maybe a lot less fighting for positions during the course of the early part of the race, if the strategy is going to be fuel saving. If not, if we're going to just go, at max or VMAX, I should say, then it'll be you'll see just battles from start to finish.
Alrighty, well, this warm-up session has wrapped up. We're going to get the starting grid for you, and it's going to be Ryan Odo leading them to green, Eric Harmon in P2, Owen Watts in third, Franco Sanchez in fourth, Diego Zuccarelli in fifth, John Benlid in sixth, completing an all-Canadian. Row number 3, that's going to be Charles Krasik, the top of the AM drivers, leading them to green, Adrian Fernandez in P8, Tyler Vickery, who just had a chat with him, P number 9, Oyahan there in P10, Joel Jacklin in P number 11, Max Siegel in P number 12, Lucas Vieira, that's going to be a driver we need to keep our eyes on. He's going to be starting in 13th, and he is going to be a man on a mission. Brennan Wright, Luis Pires, and Brian Johnson will round out your 16-car grid here for this race. There's a lot of storylines that we need to keep our eyes on. The strategy is one of them. Lucas Vieira going to be charging through the field. That is going to be one of them. But the main talking point here at the very start is the start itself. We saw everyone get away with it fairly clean during that sprint race. However, here with this 45-minute long feature race, they may not be as lucky. We're riding on board with the pole sitter Odo. He has a fantastic jump there, minimizes wheel spin as best as he can, and that's a fantastic start there from Watts. He slid his way into P number 2. That's an incredibly quick start from the driver who we saw battling and dicing for the win in that sprint race. He's now going to try and do that yet again here in this 45-minute feature so far, everyone. Getting through the Senna S is fairly clean. Lucas Vieira, all right, jumping up quite a lot of spots right now as things stand at the moment. He's up 4 from where he started, now 5 as he gets a move done there on Charles Krasik. Heading into turn number 4 here of Interlagos there. That's Lucas Vieira getting the move done to slot his way into P number 8. Nicely played there from the Brazilian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just noticed something at the start of this race. If we see an orange car, Krasik, maybe somebody in that right-hand lane, and it looked like it was either red or orange, jumped on the start. So I don't know if they jumped enough to cause a penalty, but if we see them peel into the pits here at the end of the lap, we'll know who the offender was.
I think it is Charles Krasik. I just took a look at iRacing. Had to go about the old-fashioned way, forget our live timing screen. I went to iRacing itself, went into the entries tab, and I see a big, bold black flag against Charles Krasik's name. That is going to sting. That is going to be a big kick in the nuts for the driver, who is always a force to be reckoned with week in and week out when it comes to that amateur fight. Speaking of a force right now, Eric Harmon being a little bit forceful to try and get the move done here on Sanchez, my apologies, heading into turn number 1 here, heading through the Senna S's. Sanchez sticking it down the inside of turn number 2 there. He doesn't get the move done there. Harmon gets into P at number 3. Nicely played there from the American driver. Now Diego Zuccarelli is going to try and find a way to get past Sanchez here in the not-too-distant future. These 3 cars, you can cover them with a blanket right now, but they don't want to battle too hard because then they'll lose touch with the likes of Odo and Watts. However, we could see a repeat of what we had during that sprint race. I will note one thing. Krasik did not come in, so he hasn't served his penalty yet. We're not sure exactly what it is, whether it be with the jump start. Would it be a drive-through that Krasik would get?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a drive-through penalty. It's either that. I don't think there's a stop and go. I think it's a drive-through, but we'll know. We'll know when he comes in. He's got 3 laps, obviously, to serve the black flag. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I think either way for Krasik, whether it's a stop and go or just a drive through, that is still gotta be, oh yeah, you can see him rolling there at the very start of this race. We're following Owen Watts with his fantastic launch there. It looked like he was slipping the clutch. I recognize that strategy from some of the shifter card racing I've done in real life, but Owen Watts with an incredible jump, Charles Krasik there with an actual jump, and he is going to be feeling that pain when he comes down pit lane. That's not even a stab in the back, that is a stab in the middle of your left eye. Oh my god, that's very close between Sanchez, Harmon, and Zuccarelli heading into the Sen S's here at the very start of lap number 3. It's dragged Lucas Vieira into that fight. He's a tail car of this 4-car train that we have right now, right towards the tail end of the top 5, battling for those final podium positions, and Vieira slotting his way into that final top 5 spot. Gets a move done there on Zuccarelli heading into turn number 4. It's still not over yet. Vieira may be having some flashbacks going side by side through that section of the course. However, Vieira gets a move done smoothly to move into P number 5, and I'm sure his charge through the field is not going to end there.
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah, he is definitely on the move, and he's got back up into that lead group of pro cars. So we get a look here on board with Sanchez, and that run down the start-finish straight. You just see the draft, how fast you just pull up on the car in front. Just a deep dive into the corner. Kind of parks on the apex a little bit there, checks up the car behind of Harmon, and that was great pass though. And Krasik did come in, by the way, 21-second drive-through penalty, so probably cost him looks like about 13 or 14 seconds on track. So he's about 27 seconds off the lead. Off of Zuccarelli in 6. He's about 30 seconds off the lead.
I think that's still painful, though, regardless of how you slice it. That is a real kick in the shins for Krasik. He is going to be on the back foot throughout this race. However, it is the Radical America Series. Anything can happen between now and the checkered flag. Currently 15 cars on track right now. Brian Johnson, who ended up DNFing from the sprint race we had earlier on this evening, did not actually take the start. So only 15 cars on track here for this evening. And actually, we got comments in the YouTube chat here on Apex Racing TV asking if 8th place runner right now, Adrian Fernandez, used to be the kart driver by the same name of Adrian Fernandez, a multi-time IndyCar race winner. I think he won 8 races, if I'm not mistaken. I should probably know that since I run my math about IndyCar history for a living, along with running my math about these broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV. Franco Sanchez going around the outside there, trying to hold off any sort of challenge from Lucas Vieira. I think it's going to be a fruitless effort, though. I'm sure Vieira is going to try and find any way in the book to get past. He arguably should have won that sprint race. It didn't turn out for him there. He got involved in that incident. I think he also had a drive-through penalty to serve as well, considering he cut about half the track after that incident that he and Watts had. But now Vieira, a man on a mission. He is one of the fastest drivers here in this series, and he is putting that on full display, battling here, heading into the Ascent S, trying to sneak his way into a podium position, and with a move down the inside, he gets it done beautifully there on Franco Sanchez. So Lucas Vieira, the Brazilian driver, we've got a South American civil war forming right now, nearly making contact as they go onto the back straightaway, rounding their way out of Curva del Sol before they go into Descia del Lago here side by side still. And that's a big overshoot there for Eric Harmon. He was running solidly inside the top 5. Now he's going to lose touch of these 3. Now Diego Zuccarelli is battling hard here with Franco Sanchez side by side, heading into turn number 6. Not close enough to get the move done there, coming through Ferradura. It's always nice to have some beautiful corner names, but I think, well, we have a small little lull in this fight before all hell probably breaks loose when they go onto that start-finish straightaway. I'll end that point that I was going to make, that although Adrian Fernandez in this race is not the IndyCar driver by the same name, we did have another former IndyCar driver, that being Richie Hearn, the one-time IndyCar race winner who won the first ever race just period at the at Las Vegas Motor Speedway all the way back in 1996 before he departed for kart after that. That was the second race of the 1996-97 IndyCar season for that year. He was part of this series, however, he hasn't raced since round number 2 at Sebring. It'll be nice to see some more drivers show up for the next round of the season coming up on May 12th at Barber Motorsports Park. And Charles, being from Alabama yourself, I'm sure you're very much looking forward to that broadcast in a couple of weeks' time. Owen Watts is really enjoying this view. He's actually in the lead of the race, got a move done there on Odo, and I think we're going to take a look at a replay of it.
Yeah, it's just coming, let's see, we're coming out of
9.
Yep, 9. Is that turn 9? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, just a little bit loose there by Odo, and got off in the curb and then in the grass, and it was easy pickings there for Watts.
Yeah, fairly textbook stuff there. Owen Watts and Ryan Odo not coming to blows like we saw Watts and Vieira come to not very long ago. And there's another angle here of what happened with Odo and Watts heading into turn number 10. And yeah, that is not ideal. The one position that you don't want to have your steering wheel be at is pretty much full opposite lock heading into a corner. That is not ideal for Ryan Odo, but being the wheelman that he is, he kept it out of the barriers, kept it on the track with a little bit of lawn mowing, and he's still running in a fantastic position. We're only about 9 minutes in to this 45-minute race, so there's still a lot that can happen between now and the end of it. My question is, will we see that 2-car fight turn into a little bit more than that? Will we see the likes of Vieira catch up to them? Will we see Diego Zuccarelli and Sanchez get involved in that? Probably not. They're going to be battling as hard as they have been so far tonight. Zuccarelli there on the inside, Sanchez sweeping around the outside, trying to hold off any sort of challenge from the Canadian coming through the Sen as holds it off quite nicely there. Franco Sanchez still slotted in P number 4 as things stand at the moment with less than 10 minutes on the board right now. Still side by side heading into turn number 4. Battle of the last late breakers. Who's going to prevail in that fight? It's still going to be Sanchez, who actually runs quite wide there. Actually, both of them ran into the grass on the outside of turn number 4 and 5 there. And now side by side, about to enter turn number 6 is a bold move around the outside. If Zuccarelli can pull this off, it would be fantastic, but Sanchez, having the willpower of a maniacal crazy person, manages to hold on to P number 4 for now. They're still battling hard going through the midsection of the track. That's through the quick switchback of 8 and 9. They're about to head their way through turn number 10. Hopefully for their sake, they don't have a moment like Odo had not very long ago, but with their hard battling, Eric Harmon has now gone back in this fight. We saw him go extremely deep heading into turn number 4, nearly stopped in Argentina. He went so wide heading into turn 4, but now Eric Harmon is back involved in this fight, and if these three start battling very hard, we could see Ben Litt and P number 7 get involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we see this in our Sunday doubleheader week in and week out. Is once these cars start battling through corners, it just invites all those cars behind to just close that gap. And then as we go in, looking 3 wide. No, it was nice, easy. They said, no, we're not going to do that just yet. We're still early. But yeah, as soon as they start battling side by side through corners, just invites those cars behind and make up just tons of time. And then now instead of 2 cars battling, you've got 3 cars battling, and it just continues and builds. And then it continues, and they just keep. Now it's 5 or 6 cars, and it's that way until either somebody peels off for a pit stop or somebody wrecks.
You could tell that racing was really exciting, considering my impression of either a dog whistle or a tornado warning siren. That was a very strange noise that I don't think I've ever uttered out of my mouth in the 19 years that I've been on planet Earth, but it shows you how sketchy it is going 3 wide anywhere on this track. That was bold stuff from all of those drivers, especially to do it so very early on into this race. Currently 8 laps on the board, so much racing left to go here, and these drivers are still giving it absolute hell. Side by side, Sanchez and Zuccarelli heading through turn number 11, about to enter Jungstau of turn number 12, and those two are going to be slowing each other up quite nicely. Yep. Eric Harmon is going to be eating these two up like dinner right now, going on to the start-finish straightaway in just a few moments' time, navigating the kinks of turn 14 and 15. Harmon aggressively pursuing that draft, and actually Sanchez coming in So I'm not sure if that's a very early pit stop or if he just felt like he had to go into the pits, otherwise he was going to hit the wall. But either way, Harmon and Zuccarelli going side by side, going down into the Senna S's. And I mentioned that Benelid could be involved in this fight. He is. He's now about 0.3 of a second away from Zuccarelli, and P number 5 was Fernandez also involved in that too. Franco Sanchez has stopped in his box, the earliest to come down pit road, 8.2 seconds stopped in the box. Thankfully here for these drivers, they won't have to worry about tires in these races. I believe the stat from Sebring was that their tires were only worn to about 70% after this feature race, so it's not really tire wear even at a track like this, which is tight, twisty, and technical. You don't really have to worry about it too much. Right now, John Benelid is having to worry about Adrian Fernandez trying to get a move done on him. He's going to have to worry about his tires if he has any more bad lockups like that heading into turn number 8 there. John Benelid loses out on that position, drops out of the top 6, and Fernandez gets that move done after the Canadian runs wide heading through that section. But Sanchez coming in for a surprisingly early stop here, Charles.
Yeah, he did. I think he just decided he didn't want to be part of that fight for right now. He said, we'll save that for later. Let me go ahead and, looks like pit windows open. Let me go ahead and come in and make my stop, and I can get out and run some hot laps. And that was a great move by Fernandez. Just a nice, last of the late breakers. And then Bentley just went a little too deep, and Fernandez was able to cross him over and make that pass. Now Bentley's in the pits as well.
Ooh, yeah, so maybe this is starting that flood coming down pit road. Sanchez may be the trendsetter here, and yeah, this is very interesting from Benelid. Again, maybe taking that, trying to take the high road when it comes to these fights, being like, hey, I don't want to be putting myself in a very vulnerable position. I don't want to crash my car still very early on into this race. I'm going to take the high road and come into the pits. Benelid actually spends much longer down pit road than Sanchez did, 29.6 seconds down pit lane compared to Sanchez's 28.0. So we'll definitely be keeping tabs on that throughout this race. I'm curious, will we see anyone else follow these two down pit road? Currently, the only drivers to come in for their pit stops are the drivers running in P11 and P12, that being Sanchez and Benelid. Krasik has gone down pit road, but of course to serve that drive-through penalty that he picked up for the jump start at the very start of this race. As we're seeing some more drivers very close to each other. That's Brendan Wright in the 888 car, not a long ways off of Max Siegel there in P number 9. We may see a fight develop between these two. Actually, they're spreading out a teeny tiny bit. So I think at this stage of this race, 15 minutes in, we're past how long it was for that sprint race. So I think we may be seeing some drivers take it a little bit easy right now. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of the lull in the middle of the race as the pit cycle started, and it's just everybody just, okay, let me just solidify the position I'm in, run some good clean laps, keep the car clean, and then I'll set up to get my hot lap in for my pit stop, and then we'll do some racing after that. I think that's just kind of where we are right now. As the train has kind of spread out a little bit, there's still a couple of battles on track, so I'm going to be interested to see the next car in, where they come out in relationship between Sanchez and Benelid, because it wasn't that much slower of a lap. It was a second and a half, but Sanchez is 5.5, almost 6 seconds up the road. So I thought they were a little bit closer before the pit stop than that, but maybe they weren't. And so either way, it's looking at Sanchez's lap times, he's really got really good pace. He's running kind of top 5 pace currently after the pit stop.
And I think we may be seeing these drivers kind of working together at this stage. They see Vieira closing in as well, currently 2.3 seconds back of these two as things stand at the moment. I think we may be seeing these drivers be like, hey, may not battle, we'll just try and keep working at it, keep mowing the laps away, and just trying to grow that gap between themselves and Vieira, because we mentioned at the start of this race, and we'll mention it again here about 16 coming up to 17 minutes in, Vieira is a massive threat here He set the fastest lap of the race in that sprint earlier on this evening, and I think he doesn't have the fastest lap of the race so far. However, last time by, he was nearly quicker than the both of them. So Lucas Vieira is a man that both of those drivers, along with both of us in the commentary booth, need to keep our eyes on throughout this, because that is going to be, I think he may be, well, so far at least, he's probably one of our best storylines. We mentioned it right at the start. I'll bring it up again, up 10 spots from where he started right now. So Lucas Vieira showing off that he is a very proficient racer here in these Radical SR10s, and I think it may be the fact he has hometown advantage as well. He wants to, the Brazilian driver really wants to take that checkered flag and take that W here in his hometown.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's, you know, I always want to win your home race, right? So as we're getting a replay here from Josh, and we're going to see the 71, that was Vieira.
This is Vieira's cut through the field, heading into turn number 1. Ooh.
Yeah, I think Josh was trying to serve us up a different replay of Benelud, but I can't see it. I'm just getting a little bit of a replay. Okay. All right,
so
cool.
This is Vieira just cutting his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. I feel like I say that so much here on Apex Racing TV that Lee Thompson may want to put it on a t-shirt here. He's our boss. I think he would probably make money off of that, Lee. So if you're listening to this broadcast, probably tomorrow, that'd be a good idea for Apex Racing TV merchandise. I would buy 5 t-shirts myself, hand them out to family members, and then probably never hear from them again. But right now, we're seeing Lucas Vieira, and we're seeing the supercut, really, of all the moves that he's done. He's been shaking around all around the racetrack, getting moves done left, right, and center. Lucas Vieira is he's a monster right now here in this race. Put on 10 moves throughout this race, up 10 positions from where he started, and really he's head and shoulders above the rest, because looking through the rest of the field, you've got the likes of Owen Watts, who had that fantastic start, is up to, as we're taking a look at some more replays of Vieira. That's him getting the move done on Sanchez not very long ago. But then you look through, you've got the likes of Max Siegel and Brendan Wright up 4. So Lucas Vieira up in the double digits, up 10 spots in a 15-car race. That is very, very impressive from the Brazilian.
It really is, and I'm just looking at his last lap. He was 2/10 faster than the front two, so he is now he is still closing that gap down, and he'll be in draft range here. If he's not within the next lap or two, then it'll be game on at that point. He should be able to tighten that up and make that a 3-car race for the lead.
We'll just have to wait and see how things shake up with these drivers. Currently, Odo has the fastest lap of the race at a 128.883, but you can see there Vieira at a 128.893 as Odo and Watts, I think they have thrown caution to the wind. Maybe Odo feeling a tad bit impatient with his adversary there. I think we may be seeing these drivers be like, hey, working together ain't working. Let's just give it hell and be just... Let the best man win, I think, is the mentality that these two are now having. As we just crossed the 20-minute mark here in this race not very long ago, these drivers throwing caution to the wind, and they will have to size up pit stops soon, because usually, I mean, you think a 45-minute race, you'd expect to see most of the pit stops in the middle. We're pretty much locked steady in the middle of this race, 20 minutes on the board, 45 in total, and this is a move that Ryan Odo did to get the move done heading into turn number 1. Just textbook stuff there from Odo, gets it done fairly clean, and thankfully for him, he wasn't going side by side with Watts when they came out of turn number 5. Didn't want a replay of what happened with Vieira and Watts during that sprint. But right now, Ryan Odo, who's been a force to be reckoned with ever since Sebring, he was very unlucky, got caught up in some lap traffic incidents there with a driver not really using their head and having some pretty bad rejoins. But ever since then, Ryan Odo has been a star in this series. But I feel like they're delaying the inevitable. Vieira sets the fastest lap of the race at a 128.811. Vieira is a man on a mission and has now closed that gap to within a second of our leader Odo.
Yeah, and to go back to that pass that Odo made on Watts, I think Watts backed out, and for that same reason, is that he didn't want to fight through the corner. That would just made Vieira's charge that much faster and put both those cars in jeopardy. So he's like, okay, you know what? I'll get behind. We'll just kind of leapfrog each other, and we'll see if the combined powers of our cars can hold Vieira off. I don't know how that's going to work for him. Vieira has been quite quick since the drop of the green flag. And so this is going to be a 3-car race, and it may come down to pit stops.
The pit stops are going to be huge. I think we mentioned that right before we grabbed the green flag about 22 minutes ago. The pit stops are a massive role here in these feature races, but right now these drivers throwing caution to the wind. I think we may be seeing some shuffling continue here in the not too distant future. Watts is closing. He is going to try and get the move done here when they're going to head into the Senna S in just a few moments. Actually, Watts, I think, backed out of it there. So Watts deciding to take a little bit easy. Vieira isn't. He just improved on his fastest lap of the race to go to 128.778. So Vieira, the Brazilian, trying to put on a show for his hometown fans. He is putting on a fantastic show right now. This is going to be a dogfight between these three, where I think the gloves are definitely going to be off. Vieira may have to face, I think one of the most challenging passes he's going to have to do is getting past Watts. Watts, we've seen so far, I think this is his first broadcast, this first race here on Apex Racing TV, first race for sure here with the Radical Sim Racing Americas series. However, we've seen from Watts so far in the one race that he's done so far, one race in about 23 minutes of another one. Owen Watts is a very hard competitor, and of course Vieira, he may be getting some flashbacks to that incident he had with Watts during that first race, so he may be a little bit hesitant to go for a kamikaze balls to the wall move here in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I think he maybe learned his lesson from the first one, and he's just, you know what, I'll make some moves later on, but for now let's just ride and get through the pit stop, and then we can do some racing later. And hopefully, you know, they'll all be for us. Hopefully, for them, I'm sure they're thinking something else. But for us, you know, we're hoping that they're going to be stuck together for the rest of the race and battling 3 cars deep. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to.
Still pretty close right now as things stand at the moment. 0.6 of a second separating these 3 drivers. You can cover them all with a blanket. And right behind them, Eric Harmon is essentially in no man's land in 4th. Can't really blame us. We're not really looking at him too much. He's just pulled away from all the cars that were around him not very long ago. Vieira with a big lift heading into turn number 4. I think Vieira at this stage is maybe eyeing those pit stops and maybe eyeing to not pass these drivers on track, but to pass them through strategy. He may go for an undercut, he may go for an overcut, trying to stay out longer than these drivers. I was going to mention this before he grabbed the green. Let me catch my breath here real quick. I'm drinking, usually I have some filtered water for this, but I just bought like 5 cases of Deer Park, not sponsored, and it's doing some very strange things to my lung capacity here. I may be getting myself pneumonia during this broadcast, but nevertheless, I think at this stage Vieira may be trying to size up an overcut. I was going to mention this before we grab the green. I'll mention it here because it feels fitting. Before we grab these pit stops for the top 3, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to what strategy you want to run, because it seems like trying to stay out and save fuel for as long as you can seems to be the strategy of choice for a lot of these drivers. We heard it when we were having a chat with Tyler Vickery before we grabbed the green here, but with a field that's only 15 cars strong, I feel like, I mean, with a very small field at a fairly large racetrack, it may not be out of the realm of possibilities to try and go for an undercut. That could have been what the likes of Ben Lid were doing earlier with his call. Sanchez as well, who's currently in P number 8. Maybe we're seeing both sides of the coin, whether you want to go for the overcut that most drivers are going for, or whether you want to just try and do something different to be a bit flamboyant and just be like, hey, if I do the exact same position, if I do the exact same strategy as everyone else around me, how am I going to overtake them? You may as well try something different. Max Siegel has now come into the pits in P number 12. So, Charles, do you really, like, if you were one of these drivers taking the green as these drivers did about 25 minutes ago, do you think you would have favored the overcut strategy, or do you think you would have at least partially considered the undercuts?
I mean, Vieira, he got through the field so quickly that he would have been like a prime candidate for the undercut. Made up some time once he got stuck, come into the pits, take your fuel, get back out in some clean air. But if he's able to save some fuel behind those front 2 cars, Yeah, overcut may be a really sound strategy as well because once he gets clean air for those 1 or 2 laps extra, he's going to be able to set some. He's already been setting fastest laps of the race, and that's with 2 cars in front of him. Imagine what he's going to be able to do unencumbered with just clean open track. So overcut might not be a bad call for him now that we're this far into the race. As we see, Krasik on there is running P11, battling with Jacqueline and Benelid right in front. So, yeah, overcut's not a bad call if you can manage to save the fuel. The only, the downside of that is you're not saving enough fuel, or if you're running third in this situation and Watts is running second, maybe he's also saving fuel and you guys both have the same thought and you end up coming in together, which is not necessarily a bad thing either because now you've got a drafting partner. To when you get back out on track.
Ooh, Charles Krasik trying to go for a move, entering turn number 1, goes very deep, heading into the Sen-S, and loses out on that position. Fantastic save to keep it out of the barriers and actually keep it on the road. I don't even think he picked up a lawn clipping there, so that was nice there from Charles Krasik to keep it going roughly in the same direction as the racetrack. We're going to take a look at a replay, and I will say Charles Krasik, despite the fact he picked up a slowdown, or not slowdown, my apologies, picked up a drive-through towards the very beginning of this broadcast. He's put together a fantastic recovery drive to run while was challenging for that top 10. Briefly moved into the top 10 before that small little slide of his, the drift, heading through turn number 1. And that, looking at the onboard, made it even more impressive. The fact he didn't even go into the grass after that, after being out for it was like 50 degrees or something like that. That was mega sideways if you're a Krasik.
Yeah, it was, and that was a good catch. He just I think maybe misjudged how much extra draft he was getting, how much extra speed he was carrying, and just went really deep into one and just was offline. Maybe got into the marbles and had to catch the car, but managed to catch it and keep it going. And like I said, didn't even get an off track for it, so it was a great job of driving by him.
Well done, Krasik. That, I think, is the main takeaway from that save coming through turn number 1. We're following Franco Sanchez coming through the S's. He is running in, well, effectively no man's land right now. The gap between himself and Tyler Vickery there in P number 7 is currently 9 seconds. And then he has another 9-second gap between himself and John Benelid, who's another one of those cars that came into the pits extremely early on into this race. So Franco Sanchez trying something new, trying something different. I don't think it's necessarily working out for him, though. He had to negotiate lap traffic, well, just general traffic throughout most of that beginning of this stint here. So I think Franco Sanchez may have cooked his tires. You can see how much steering lock he's having to put in heading through these corners right now. So Franco Sanchez may be struggling with a little bit of a grip, but you can't really fault the guy too much for at least trying something different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a good call. It was gutsy, but he's got clean, like I said, clean air, and he's running really good lap times. He is making up gaps to the cars in front. He's not running quite as fast as the top 3. Obviously, Vieira's just on a tear. Harmon actually just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:28.71. That was a catch that didn't get made, but once again, nothing hit. It just a little spin and pick it back up and get started again.
I think it was a line from Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear who said it's a pen squiggle. That was basically what Krasik did there. That's Max Siegel going very deep into the runoff area of turn number 11. We're going to take a look at a quick replay to see what happened here to the driver of the number 175 car. Lots of Taban squiggles being laid down by the tires here. Big snap heading through turn number 11. Oh, into the barriers. That is not going to help the rear end of Max Siegel's race car by any way, shape, or form. Here's the onboard view. We're going to see how quickly things snap here. Hit that curb. That's what killed him. That is so that's, I mean, the curbs here don't seem too high. It's not like killer curbs or urban plateaus as some people may call them, but it's wrinkly enough and bumpy enough whereby that front splitter gets a little bit screwed with and that diffuser gets screwed with as well, and that's exactly what hurt Max Siegel there. Yeah, well, it's a crested curb, so it's higher in the middle than it is on the side. So once you jump over the apex of the curb, as far as the height in the middle of the curb, as you can see there from a look on the outside curbs there,
and you get to that off-cambered part, that's where it kind of screwed him up, kind of hooked the car a little bit, just let it go.
Ooh, nice sportsmanship here. That's very close, actually, as we saw Max Siegel rejoin the racetrack, come out of the pits right in front of the front pack there of Ryan Odo, Watts, and Vieira. And I thought it was going to be, I mean, it was an honorable effort, it must be said, from Siegel, the fact he just kept it out of the way there. However, it was, well, I can't really fault the guy too much. He tried the best he could, just call him at a very bad time. And we saw Watts and Vieira nearly rear-end Siegel as they went through turn number 4. Thankfully, they got away with it fairly scot-free. We're going to take a look here. That was Siegel, who we were riding on board with as he was trundling down pit road. Picked up a little bit of suspension damage with that wall knock, and I think we're going to follow him for a little bit of time now. And yeah, you can see just got a slight shot there of Ryan Odo as he careened his way into turn number 1. And we're going to see Max Siegel try his best to get out of the way of lap traffic. Always nice to see the drivers try their best. That's all you can really ask for Max Siegel. He goes to the outside here, runs a little bit wide, and just decides, hey, I'm going to let you guys by, but he's on that outside curb. That is the reason why the gap between Ryan Odo and Watts, which was very close for quite some time, those two, actually those three, were covered by about 0.7 of a second for quite some time. They have closed up yet again. Actually, now we have Eric Harmon coming into the pits, so the driver that was running in no man's land in P number 4 has come into the pits along with Adrian Fernandez. So all these drivers starting their pit stops here. You can see as things stand currently, you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a smattering of drivers so far to come into the pits. About half of the field has come into the pits right now. Joel Jacklin now in the number 25 car coming down pit road. I think it's going to be a matter, well, it's obviously a matter of when, not if, because these drivers do have to pit. But I think it's going to be a matter of a few laps before we see the front 3 pull in. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, I think we're at, that 30, 34-minute mark. My guess is that they've got to come in with the next couple of laps. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's going to be the next lap or two. I think the rest of the field comes in, and that's the top 5. So, Odo, Watts, Vieira, Zuccarelli, and Vickery, and there's Odo and Vieira. Watts stays out.
Ooh, so going for an interesting strategy call, it must be said. Again, we mentioned it earlier on in this broadcast, and I'll bring it up again as well. If you're running around these drivers and you want to try and beat them, you may as well try and do something else, because if you do exactly what they're doing, you're just going to follow them to the checkered flag. Vieira down and away after 8.2 seconds in the box. He's going to jump Ryan Odo at to take that inside line, that very bumpy line on the left-hand side of that pit exit cone. So Ryan Odo nearly slammed into the pace car trying to make his way out of the pits, and Vieira, he was only stopped for he was only stopped for less than, it was only 0.2 of a second that they were in the pits for less. So Vieira, it's a matter of barely any time separating these drivers when it comes to these races. Tyler Vickery now coming out as well, the driver of the number 24 car, exiting the pits, a driver we also had a chat with earlier on in this broadcast. But again, it shows you it's a matter of pixels. It's a matter of thousandths of a second even at times with these Radical SR10s. 0.2 it was that Ryan Odo was stopped longer than Vieira, but it ended up costing him some track position, and they were actually down the pits for 0.4 longer. So it kind of snowballs a teeny tiny bit there, and now I think we may be seeing, is Watts coming in as well? Yes, he is. So the leader of this race, Owen Watts, in the number 14 car, has now come down pit road, being very careful, trying not to speed there on pit exit. Owen Watts, I think, got away with it fairly clean. He's now going to come into the pits here. Very quick lap, it must be said, a 30.051 when he came in for his in lap. Now Owen Watts stopped in the box. Ooh, waiting on the fuel, waiting on the gas. 8.2 seconds in the box, and now he is away. But he spent a decent amount of time there in pit lane. 28.3 seconds compared to Vieira's 27.4. This is going to be very close as they come out of the pits. I think Vieira may get him. However, Watts is going to be in that drift. It's going to be close between himself and Ryan Odo. The two drivers that came to blows in the sprint race are now back running in P1 and P number 2. Pretty much exactly how these front 3 and really the front four were during that sprint race. So I gotta wonder if things are going to end the same, or if we're going to see just a bare knuckle fist fight between now and the checkered flag.
Well, I mean, the difference is Vieira is now in P1 as opposed to P3. He's at the other end of that group of three. But mission accomplished. All three of the front runners had good stops, roughly within a second of each other, and so now it's game on for the next 8 minutes.
This is going to be a dogfight between now and the checkered flag. I guarantee no one is sitting down watching this action, nearly going side by side when they came out of turn number 10. I'm sure they're very much going to be side by side when they come into the center, as in just a few moments time coming around Jungsao, turn number 12. Not a whole lot of time left to go. Less than 10 minutes left on the clock here, so it is crunch time for these drivers. Now Watts trying to stick it around the outside of Vieira, going down the start-finish straightaway. It's going to be a battle of last late breakers. Who's going to prevail in this fight? Watts on the outside, Vieira on the inside, and Odo grabs the fastest lap of the race. Vieira holds it off for now, but they're going to go on to that back straightaway. Reto Pasta in just a few moments' time. Is Vieira going to be a sitting duck? Is Watts going to be able to get the move done? Or are these two going to come to blows? And is it going to be a Cinderella story for Ryan Odo? Vieira still leading them heading into turn number 4 on lap 26. Ooh, he actually runs a little bit wide there. He may have a bad run coming onto the small little flat app list. They came to blows in this section during that sprint race. Will they come to blows here as well? Side by side, heading through turn number 6, now into turn number 7, still side by side. Vieira's going to be stuck on that outside line there, coming through turn number 8. Watts gets the move done to take the lead of the race.
Yeah, and that's probably going to last until they get to the straightaway. And then Vieira's going to try and make that move again to get back in front. And it's going to be a game of cat and mouse for the rest of the race. It's just going to be who can make the moves, who's going to make a mistake that's going to cost them a chance to get the win, and who's going to be able to make that pass at the end of the race. It was, in the sprint race, it was a quarter second between the front two cars, and it didn't look that close until the very last bit of it.
This right here, folks, is a 170-mile-an-hour game of leapfrog. That is for darn sure. Who's going to be the leaper and who is going to be the one that gets left? We'll just have to wait and see. Now Vieira trying to get the move done on Watts to retake the lead of the race, heading for the dive bomb move, heading into turn number 1, pulls off the move successfully to take it, coming through the center S here on lap 27. It's still not over yet. Will Watts try and go for the move, heading into turn number 4 in just a few moments' time. He's closing, going to the inside line now, side by side, heading into this section. Who's going to prevail in this fight? Who is going to be the one to lose that? It looks like for now it's going to be Watts being behind Vieira as he come out of turn number 5, but they're still going to be side by side. Again, going into turn at number 6 is Diego Zuccarelli battling hard with Sanchez, and I think Vieira and Watts single filed out before they went into 6 and 7. I don't think they want a repeat of what they had just one lap ago when they went side by side coming through that section. Now we're coming up, and it's now 5 minutes left on the clock here, 5 laps to go. And trying to do the math in my head, it's about 3, maybe even 4 laps to go. There's not a whole lot of time left to go here in this race, and it is going to be tense all throughout this field. Tyler Vickery is locked steady in a nice fight between himself and Jean Benlid here, so that may be close between those two between now and the end. The driver of the number 24 car trailing the driver of the number 8. The driver of the number 171 car is currently the lead. He is the engine of this train, towing him along, dragging him along, going down the start finish straightaway. Will Watts try and go for the move? Yes, he is, going down the inside into turn number 1, nearly making contact in the braking zone. They are Vieira and Watts side by side, and Watts going for a spin and hitting that inside wall, and Watts is going to be out of it with front end damage. He will be very lucky if he doesn't have suspension damage as well. I think he may have gone away with it fairly scot-free, but a 7-second gap has taken him out of it. Now it's Odo and Vieira, a bare knuckle fist fight between those two, going down the back straightaway. Vieira running wide coming through turn number 4. Odo's going to have a great run here. I wonder if Vieira may pick up a slowdown with how wide he went, nearly making contact as they come out of turn number 5. Odo trying to stick it around the outside. Vieira defending for everything that he has. These two are some of the best Radical SR10 drivers that the Radical America Series has to offer. They're fighting for one thing and one thing only, the win in this championship and a spot in the World Finals later on this year. And these two are fighting like their lives depend on it. And this was the major drama that we just saw a few moments ago. Owen Watts in the number 14 car. He is a very aggressive racer, but I think he bit off a little bit more than he could chew there. Hit that inside curb, that curb of doom here around Interlagos. Hit that teeny tiny bit, got the weight balance and the aero balance shifted a little bit out of his favor, and sadly for Owen Watts, it is going to end in tears. I think he's still a surefire lock for a podium position, but Owen Watts, it looked like he was going to be the one to try and challenge Vieira for the win. He was challenging Vieira for the win, but just sadly a small little mistake. It's a matter of feet separating a driver from driving their way into victory lane versus driving their way into the barrier.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just exactly right on that call. Just a little too much curb on the inside, got the car loose and spun it. And so now we've got the battle up front between Odo and Vieira as we're watching a replay here of Vieira leading. And that was that move that Odo had to look. And oh no, Odo spun.
Oh, Ryan Odo is spun as well. We're just, that was coming to have turn number 4, and now Watts slots back into P in number 2. It caught me by surprise. I was in the middle taking a sip of water, and I just saw the gap between Vieira and Odo shoot away. We may have to take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened there with Ryan Odo. Was it contact? Was it an unforced error? We'll just have to see what happened here. Odo goes for the send down the inside. I think it was contact there. A little bit in net code, it must be said. I think there was a little bit of air separating those two, but Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira, you can't really say that one driver was to blame there. I think that was just hard racing between two of Radical's best, ending a little bit less fortunate than they really wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, turn 4 is such a hard corner, even when you're just by yourself driving the track, and then to try and go too wide through there. I mean, we've seen several things happen in some of the major real life series as well in this corner. As you just see, yeah, just Vieira did a good job just squeezing, but left him some space. But obviously, just too much of the inside curb. And just unsettled the car, and then that was pretty much it from that point.
It was very hard racing. It came to blows. However, I think it must be said, fair racing between those two. Those two were giving it absolutely everything that they had. Ryan Odo, a very fast driver. Lucas Vieira, a very fast driver as well. Both of them have scored wins in both sprints and features throughout this so far. Very early season, but still, that was one of the most intense fights I have seen in my time broadcasting here on Apex Racing TV. That was 3 of some of the fastest drivers, well, the fastest drivers in this race, and some of the fastest Radical drivers in the world of iRacing, just battling hard. A bare-knuckle fist fight, I described it as, and that really is what it was, just very hard racing between all of those drivers, and sadly for two of them, it's going to end in tears. I think that Lucas Vieira is going to be taking the white flag in just a few moments time. The clock is running out soon, about 10 seconds left to go. Is Vieira going to take the white, or is he going to take the checkered? I think he's actually going to take the checkered, so Lucas Vieira is going to claim victory here in a dramatic way. He started this race in 14th. He's going to end at a P number 1 and sets the fastest lap of the race too. That is beautiful there from the Brazilian, winning in front of his hometown crowd. Watts and Odo, barely any air separating the two of them. They ran at your podium in P2 and P3. Lucas Vieira, I'm disappointed we didn't see any donuts there, but that is a textbook drive from Lucas Vieira. Sure, 2 of his competitors may have had incidents, they may have had their own spins in the later stages of this race, but Lucas Vieira he cut through the field like a hot knife through butter, put his car in the exact position that he needed to, ended up gaining 12 spots. Ooh, as we see a big incident there. Thankfully, I think glad to say that drivers can't really injure themselves in the world of sim racing. Otherwise, I'd be reading out a eulogy instead of talking about Lucas Vieira, up 12 spots from where he started this race. I think we said earlier on in this broadcast that the only person that could hold up a candle to him in terms of positions gained was up 4. He is the only driver that managed to gain more than 2 spots in that race, because you got Owen Watts who is up 1 spot, Adrian Fernandez, who finished in P7, up 1 spot, and Charles Krasik, who's actually down 5, right in front of Brendan Wright, who is up 1 as well. Then you've got Lucas Vieira, the outlier in that, up 12 from where he started this race. But man, Lucas Vieira, I think, is probably our driver of the day. What do you think, Charles?
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, he just obviously had some bad luck in the sprint race. Comes out in the feature, so I'm going to rectify that situation and makes just a fantastic drive through the field. Has a perfect pit stop, or as close to it as you can get, and then is the guy that doesn't make the critical error in the last the closing minutes of the race, and takes the race victory comfortably by 6 seconds.
So I think all the cars have now taken the checkered flag, so we'll just we'll wait a little bit for some more drivers. I think that's Franco Sanchez pulling into the pits. Not an ideal race for the Peruvian driver. That is for darn sure, but at least he kept his car clean between the start and the finish of this race. And I think we may be able to get the results here in just a few moments' time from a dramatic, a very intense feature race. And it ended up being Lucas Vieira at the front taking the checkered flag. If that incident did happen between himself and Owen Watts, it probably would have been the double for Lucas Vieira. Unfortunately for him, he had to fight like hell to try and get it. Fortunately for us, he had to fight like hell because he put on a fantastic show, and that was a great fight, probably the best fight that we've had so far this season. Owen Watts ends up in P2, Ryan Odo there in 3rd, and it's going to be Eric Harmon in P4, effectively in no man's land. Franco Sanchez in 5th, Diego Zuccarelli in P6. Now, Adrian Fernandez, who is marked with a gray ticker, at least from my screen, he's marked with a gray ticker. I believe he is actually an AM driver, so I think Adrian Fernandez is the top of the AMs from this race. So he ends up in P7. Overall, nice result from the driver, the number 127 car. Then Sean Benlid, the bottom of the pro drivers in P8. He, along with Franco Sanchez, came into the pits fairly early. Sadly for those two, it did not exactly go to plan. Then Tyler Vickery, who we had a chat with before that action-packed feature race, he ends up in P9, and Cedric Oyahan runs at your top 10.
Yeah, Joel Jacklin in 11th. Charles Krasik, obviously with the jump start, comes back and finishes 12th. Brendan Wright, 13th. Max Siegel, 14th. Luis Perez in 15th. And Brian Johnson is 16th.
Brian Johnson did not take the start of that 45-minute feature race that ended up being exactly 30 laps long. So any viewers with OCD may enjoy that. I think before we wrap things up here, after taking a look at the results that we just did, we're going to have a chat with some of these drivers. I'm looking through to see who exactly we have waiting in the interview waiting area. I'll bring in our winner from the feature race here tonight, that being Lucas Vieira. Have a chat with the hometown hero that ends up taking the checkered flag in that feature race. Lucas, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. That was intense from our perspective. Talk us through how it was from your perspective there, bud.
Hey guys. It was intense, yeah, for sure. I didn't expect it to be like P1 on the feature race. I expected at least like a P4, P5, something. But at the end, the guys ahead, like Owen Odo, was trying to fight, so I have a chance to save fuel behind them. And I have a pretty good pit entry, and I managed to go pass by Odo, and then later I managed to stay ahead of Owen. It was, I believe it was lucky for me, but it was really intense. I'm sweating already, so I'm probably gonna have to take a shower later. It was a really fun race.
Well, I think I'm sweating here just calling that race. I'm sure you were sweating like a dog after that. That was intense between you, Odo, and Watts throughout that entire race. Just talk us through the fight towards the end of it.
Oh yeah, I was really a bit skeptical because I was worried about something, I don't know, maybe not could happen between us, and I was trying to leave a space between them. And they have like two incidents. I'm not sure, I have to check the replay. I hope it was my fault at all. But they was okay, they were okay, so I think it's not my fault. And I was really careful to not end my race again. So, but it was really fun. I managed to do my best right now.
And also putting on the great show that you did, taking the fastest lap, and I think both of these races ending up taking the win in the feature. Does it feel extra special doing it here at Interlagos?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's home advantage for me, you know. It's like driving on a kid's home, you know. It's amazing this track. I love this track. Anyone who like to come to Brazil to visit this track, I would strongly recommend it because it's really, really special, this track.
We're going to be heading to I think a source of American racetrack pride. Of course, Interlagos being a fantastic a fantastic source of Brazilian racing pride. Barber in a couple of weeks' time. That'll be on May the 12th. So, how do you fancy your chances there in a couple of weeks' time?
Well, it is a tough track because if you don't qualify really well, you won't have like much opportunity to overtake during the race. But yeah, I like the track, so let's see. I think at least a podium I can manage to do.
Well, I think if you put on as good of a show that you did here at Interlagos, it is going to be a fantastic race. Lucas, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Oh yeah, for my wife, who was really late here, is watching me. And for you guys, for this amazing broadcast that you guys are doing. And for everyone who's watching in the Radical community.
I will say happy wife, happy life. So you always have to thank her, Lucas Vieira. Thank you for joining us in the commentary booth. Hope to see you next time out at Barber.
See you guys. Bye.
And that was Lucas Vieira, who ends up winning it here, wins the feature. And Charles, would you like to have a chat with someone else? I think we have Owen Watts waiting in there, so we can get the other side of that fight.
Yeah, we've got the driver of the Plaid Rad, Owen Watts, to come in and a little interview to get P2. Owen, so very interesting race, pretty much up front with Odo for the first half until Vieira came up and managed to track you guys down. And then it was game on from the pit stop going forward to the end of the race.
Yeah, the endurance race at the end definitely played out pretty much exactly how I expected it to, and I'm glad we all managed to get out of the pits all in the same area, and it was definitely an enjoyable dogfight all the way to the end. I made a mistake there towards the end coming into turn one. Car got up on the curb, and when it sat back down, it just spun me around. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That was really the key to the end of the race, both with you and Odo having, a critical mistake there in the final few laps to let Vieira just kind of coast in for a victory.
Yep, for sure. I made a terrible mistake in the sprint race early on with Lucas, and I did personally apologize with him. It's not how I race, not how I wanted that to go at all. But we were able to work things out, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season with these guys. So.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. So how do you think? What do you think about your chances at Barber?
Hopefully, well, judging my speed coming out of this round, we look pretty good, and I think I have winning pace. We just got to get all the ducks in the row, and hopefully everything works out.
All right. Well, congratulations. So, is there anybody you want to thank or give a shout out to?
Yeah, definitely my girlfriend. She's been supporting me throughout this whole stream, and my family back home as well.
Awesome. Congratulations, Owen.
Thank you.
And that was Owen Watts, the other side of that intense fight for the lead throughout all of the racing action that we had here this evening. And I think before we wrap things up here, there's a few more things I want to note. Firstly, I mean, we mentioned Barber being the next round of the season. Now, Charles, I think you may be a little bit biased on this, considering you are the man from Alabama here on this broadcast, but I'm still going to ask this anyway because of how topsy-turvy has been trying to find a stable colleague and join me in the commentary booth. I can finally ask someone on this broadcast, how do you think that race is going to be in a couple weeks' time?
Well, Barber, if you kind of watched any of the Indy broadcast over the weekend, it's up and down the grid. They're saying it's the toughest track on the Indy racing calendar. The Radical Cup actually ran there in support today in real life, or over the weekend, I should say. 37 car grid. I'd love to see 37 cars out there for our race in a couple of weeks. However, no, it's a difficult track. It's a very tight, very technical track. There's not a lot of places that the draft is going to help. You might get a little bit down the pit road straightaway, but otherwise it's just about how you work the corners. And then there's a couple of really tricky ones, obviously 2 and 3. what they call the Alabama roller coaster. And then you get into Charlotte's Hairpin, turn 5, and then Museum Corner, which is that downhill chicane that's almost like you're just dropping off the face of the earth. They call it the corkscrew, but I call it Museum Chicane just because that's who I am. Anyway, that being said, yeah, it's a fun track. It's a very difficult technical track, but there's some really good drivers in this grid, and so it's going to be interesting to watch how they navigate it.
That track is absolutely awesome. It's one of my personal favorites on the IndyCar calendar, even though I can't really make heads or tails of it myself in the sim world. It was actually part of the Radical official schedule back in Season 2 of 2023. I remember that being the very first solo broadcast I ever did here on Apex Racing TV, and have it be known that my brain was completely fried afterwards, so if only he would see me doing 3 broadcasts here today, along with my colleague Charles here in the commentary booth and our wonderful producer Josh Wilkie. We've been doing 3 broadcasts today. I think Charles and our voices are probably killed. Our brains are completely frazzled, but I think it was a fantastic way to end tonight, because that was a fantastic race here from the Radical Americas Championship. And speaking of fantastic, a fantastic schedule ahead of us. Barber is going to be the next round of the season, that being on May the 12th, and we've got the likes of Road America, Alton Park, Laguna Seca, Phillip Island, Brands Hatch, Sonoma, and then the Nordschleife to round things off all the way in October. We've got some fantastic races to look forward to here from the series. Barber in a couple weeks time is going to be one of them, and I think that is going to be all. If it's anything like the racing that we had here tonight, it is going to be absolutely fantastic, which gives all of you watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV more of a reason to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a thing. You also never miss the official broadcast that we have here every single Friday. You want to stay tuned to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park round of the season that's coming up this upcoming Friday. I used to be a part of those broadcasts for about a year, and Mr. J.R. Gregory and Aaron Smith always do a fantastic job week in and week out. Tom Dillon, who took my place there after I went into radical official retirement, he does a great job there as well. So you want to stay tuned for all the broadcasts that we have here on Apex Racing TV. It's a really sim racer's heaven here on Apex if you want to see some action all around the clock. But I think as for this broadcast, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Michelle joining me in the commentary booth, and our wonderful producer Josh Wilkie doing a great job working all the cameras in the virtual production hall, I say thank you all so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and after doing 3 broadcasts a day, I think I'm gonna probably need to eat 7 cough drops.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www